As I continue the series on Flotsam and Jetsam, we're getting towards the end of it. Today I'm talking about The End of Chaos, released on January 18th, 2019. It was the first album to feature drummer Ken Mary, and the last to include bassist Michael Spencer, before he left the band in 2020. Let's start with Flotsam and Jetsam and their new drummer. Last episode I talked about the previous drummer, Jason Bittner, who left Flotsam and Jetsam to join Overkill. They needed a drummer, so they found Ken Mary through a combination of prior professional relationships. Ken Mary's first band was called Fifth Angel. He was a core member and also returned to produce and co-write their comeback album, The Third Secret, in 2018. Ken Mary also played for Alice Cooper, performing on the album Raise Your Fist and Yell. He toured with Cooper for 3 years, including major festival appearances and a televised performance at the Joe Louis Arena in Detroit. Unlike some of his other work, Mary was an equal partner and official band member in House of Lords. He had significant writing and production input, specifically on the album Sahara. He has also worked with bands such as Chastain, Impellitteri, Accept, and Bonfire, and is currently the drummer of both Metal Church and Flotsam and Jetsam. Guitarist Steve Conley had worked with Ken Mary on numerous studio projects before Mary joined Flotsam and Jetsam. Because of this history, the band was already aware that Mary was a monster player. Not only that, but Ken Mary lives in Phoenix, which is the same home base as the band. This made the logistics of practicing together much easier. Finally, Ken Mary was a fan of the band's 2016 self-titled album and specifically expressed interest in playing with them. Ken Mary's addition to Flotsam and Jetsam significantly intensified the band's sound, pushing it toward a higher level of extremity and aggression. His influence is primarily characterized by a relentless pace, a pedal-to-the-floor approach, and technical sophistication that revitalized the band's thrash metal roots. Ken Mary's debut on The End of Chaos introduced a relentless pace and high-energy drumming that reviewers described as pulverizing. He immediately established this shift on the album opener, Prisoner of Time, which features a heavy dose of double bass, and tracks like Control, which utilize relentless blast beats. Ken Mary brought a monster player technicality to the band, aiming to push the envelope of what is possible in metal drumming. His background is in various genres, including jazz and fusion, and that allowed him to incorporate dynamic and technical pieces into songs like Slowly Insane, which he identifies as one of his favorite drum tracks due to its cool time signatures. Beyond his performance, Mary influenced the band's sonic output through his roles as producer and engineer. He recorded his drum parts in his own high-end studio, which is a full SSL facility, and that contributed to the overall production quality of the album. Additionally, he provided input on lyrics and melodies, moving beyond the traditional role of drummer. His presence served as a new element of influence for other members. Guitarists and vocalists had to adapt their playing to partner with and play in and around his powerful drumming, which helped drive the rhythm section with newfound authority. The synergy is credited with giving the band extra and new inspiration, contributing to a sense of rebirth that made them sound 20 years younger. Following the success of their 2016 self-titled album, the band felt immense pressure to deliver an even stronger record to keep their forward momentum. Guitarist Steve Conley challenged vocalist Eric A.K. Knudsen that they needed to push harder and even dig deep to create something special, rather than just putting out subpar records to tour on. This ambitious mindset resulted in an intense, high-energy album where new drummer Ken Mary described the final product as all 5 guys with a gas pedal pushed to the floor for the entire album. The songwriting picked up right where the previous self-titled record left off, relying on a successful formula of unfiltered emotion and vocal melodies that weren't restricted by a specific subject. Ken Mary's arrival brought a fresh, highly technical dynamic to this writing process. Bassist Michael Spencer noted that Mary's drumming provided a new element of influence that the guitars and vocals had to actively play in and around to drive the rhythm section. Mario also contributed directly to the songwriting to provide input on lyrics and melodies. While the drum, bass, and guitars and vocals are all going crazy technically on the tracks, the band focused heavily on making sure all the parts still work together cohesively. The End of Chaos was an entirely self-produced album by the band. Guitarist Michael Gilbert and Steve Connolly, alongside Ken Mary, all served as the album's engineers. Recording was split across 3 main locations: Sonic Fish Productions, Gnome Lord Studios, and Wayne Manor. Mary tracked his drums and Eric A.K. Knudsen vocals at his own high-end studio called Sonic Fish, utilizing full SSL console, professional outboard gear, and high-quality microphones to ensure top-tier production value. To finalize the record, the band hired Jacob Hansen to mix and master the tracks. However, the album's release date was pushed back from its original November 2018 window to January 2019 due to scheduling conflicts and missed deadlines. Because Hansen was incredibly busy and the band was actively touring, they missed several mixing opportunities. Furthermore, Steve Connolly preferred to review and refine mix details at home rather than on a noisy tour bus, prompting the label to push the release date back to ensure they had adequate time to promote the finished album. There's something interesting about the album cover. It might look familiar, and that's because it's the band brought back Flotzilla, the band's classic monster mascot, on the cover of The End of Chaos. This decision was driven by a mix of childhood nostalgia, merchandising success, and desire for a retro visual identity. The origin of the mascot is very interesting. Growing up, the band members absolutely loved the legendary monster-driven album covers of bands like Iron Maiden and Merciful Fate and many others. When they decided to bring the mascot back on their merchandise, they saw a massive spike in sales, particularly with Flotzilla shirts. Putting them back in the front of a studio album for the first time since their '86 debut, Doomsday, was a natural way to tie their music and merchandise and live show backdrops all together. The album cover was designed by artist Andy Pinkerton, which shows Flotzilla dragging the Statue of Liberty through a pool of fire. The band had requested a scene showing the mascot destroying things like a major city like New York. Guitarist Steve Connolly explicitly clarified that there are no political intentions behind the imagery. They simply wanted a classic disaster scene. Not only that, the band intentionally wanted an old-school aesthetic. While some fans online intentionally complained about the cover style, Connolly noted that those critics missed the point, as the artwork was designed specifically to pay homage to the look of 80s metal albums. The album has some very good songs. The first one is one of my favorite Flotsam and Jetsam songs of all time, and I'm talking about Demolition Man. The song is a melodic beast. The song has an addictive chorus, infectious riffing, driving rhythm, and many people have compared it to having like an Armored Saint type of gallop. But there's also Slowly Insane, which is an absolute barn burner that could fit right alongside the material on the band's classic first 2 albums. Drummer Ken Mary also named it one of his personal favorite drum tracks due to its fantastic dynamics and cool time signatures. There's also Control, which is a speed-driven juggernaut onslaught that speeds straight for the jugular. It's celebrated as pure, relentless thrash metal and stands out as another personal favorite of Ken Mary. Then there is Prisoner of Time, which is the album's powerful opener. It perfectly blends a sense of containment and fury, along with strong melodic parts, earning comparisons to a thrashier classic Iron Maiden style. There's also Architects of Hate, which hits like a bludgeoning throat punch of Thrash's retro glory days. Stands out as a major favorite for its aggressive Judas Priest-esque guitar harmonies. And then there's Prepare for Chaos with some awesome riffs and just pure thrash, making it a highly praised standout in reviews. Finally, there's Good or Bad, which has a unique Arabian vibe and spiraling riffs, making it a personal favorite track for critics.
expect? Is it North American? Is it European? Or
we are kicking off a European tour in March, and then after that, that's with Overkill and Destruction. After that, and I got to say Meshiak too. They're going to be on the bill as well in Europe. May and June in the States and Canada.
The tour supporting the End of Chaos was officially known as the Tour of Chaos 2019, during which the band played approximately 74 shows. Drummer Ken Mary noted that the band initially had about 30 dates booked for the new year, including performances in Europe and a show in Toronto. Because several members of the band lived out of town, they prepared for the tour by practicing over a couple of weekends in February. Guitarist Steve Connolly noted that they would get together to practice 3 to 5 times, which usually resulted in the band fully clicking by their third live show. The band kicked things off late January by attending the NAMM Fest in Anaheim, California. They performed at Ultimate Jam Night, which was the event's largest concert, drawing about 3,000 attendees. The official tour began in Europe in March. On this leg, Flotsam and Jetsam performed as openers alongside Overkill and Destruction. Interestingly, former Flotsam drummer Jason Bittner was the one who helped secure this tour package for the band. And as I said, he also joined Overkill after the previous album. And the European leg included major summer festival appearances such as Leyendas del Rock 2019 in Spain. After taking April off, the band embarked on a full U.S. tour through May and June. For support, promoters primarily utilized local talent, with the exception of the East Coast trek, which featured the band Dead by Wednesday. The tour also traveled north to include a date in Toronto. The band utilized very different setlist structures depending on where they were playing. In Europe, playing as openers meant they had a shorter time slot, so they played a heavy dose of new material off the End of Chaos and their 2016 self-titled. In America, they played full 90-minute headlining sets, allowing them to mix new tracks with classic older tracks like No Place for Disgrace and the songs from the first 2 albums. Connolly admitted that when they first started playing the new tracks, fans in the crowd were initially unfamiliar and reacted with confusion. However, as the tour progressed, fans began calling for the new songs, specifically Demolition Man, by name. Connolly emphasized the importance of playing new material live, noting that songs only become classics if a band is willing to play them repeatedly on the road. So that's all. We're getting close to the end of the series. Next album is Blood in the Water, and this one's going to be interesting. There will be another new bass player, as Michael Spencer would leave the band in 2020, and also the first time Flotsam and Jetsam released an album when my channel was active, so I actually reviewed this album when it came out back then. So that's next time. Check out the playlist. Should be appearing on the screen right now. I'll probably knock out all these videos up until Friday, and then when a new one comes out, I'll review it over the weekend, and then I have a poll up so to talk about what's going to be next. Apparently, it might be the band Forbidden, which will be a good series. So that's coming next. So thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.